Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Kashif Kamran and I welcome you all to another episode of the Facebook live session which is for the March 2021 exams, and the title of this Facebook live session is Ask the Tutor. And this time the Ask the Tutor is about all you need to know about the audit report. Now, this is a area generally where the student try to make a mess of the situation in the exam paper. Now, we know whether it is the AA exam or the AAA exam, irrespective of both the examination, one question on audit report is a must. Now, knowing the audit report is a must question. I don't know why the student struggle with the audit report question. The requirement of the question is pretty simple, but the problem they do is that they mess with the reporting rules. They try to create misconceptions about reporting rules, and that's where the problem starts to come in. Now, you might be having lots of questions about audit report, about the misconceptions you have about audit report, and you want to ask your tutor about it just 7 days before your actual exams begin on the 1st of March. So this session is all you need to know about audit report. So this is your opportunity. This is your session. So if you have any questions pertaining to audit report, any misconceptions you have about audit report, you are more than welcome to ask it so I can answer them within this 1 hour session. So this is your opportunity to maximize the questions, and within the stipulated time of 1 hour, the maximum number of questions I can answer I will be. So the very first question has already come in, and this is from Isha Agarwal. She's asking how to tackle a critical appraisal question, because in each question there is something new which I didn't know, like some unprofessional words. Now, see, Isha, if you can practice uh, a couple of questions on critical appraisal, like 3 to 4 questions, and more importantly, you can read one audit report. Right, you read through one audit report which you can download from a website, and I have already provided you an audit report as part of my regular course because you're from my regular course. So read through the audit report so you exactly know what is the wording, you exactly know what comes when and where. You should know the placement. Now, examiner is very clear on the critical appraisal. I've covered this topic in my live classes, in my webinars even, that you need to find the mistake in the report given by the examiner. The mistake might be of the placement. Something might be wrongly placed in the order. For example, the basis coming first and the opinion coming after, and you say no, opinion comes first and the basis comes after. So there might be something wrong with the structure, or there might be something written in the audit report which should not be written in the audit report. And how will you know that? You will know that through the reading of one audit report which you can download of any good company, and you know exactly how to read the audit report. Even the exam technique article part 5 of the examiner, you can read that, and examiner has given a link of the audit report in that article. You can click on the link and automatically a PDF file will open in front of you, which is one example of an audit report given by the examiner. So practice of 3 to 4 questions so you exactly know how to comment on a critical appraisal. You find a weakness and you tell examiner why it is a weakness, and you tell what should had been in actual. When, for example, you find there is something wrong in the structure, so you tell examiner that the structure of the report is wrong, and then you justify that the opinion should come first, followed by the basis of opinion, right? So I hope I answered your question, Isha. There is another question coming from Eamon Paracha. She's asking, sir, in September 18 paper, Eagle Group with 50 subsidiaries. Uh, in the examiner answer, there were a risk about exchange rates, hard to consolidate subsidiaries, retranslations being classified as an operating income risk. Uh, aren't these risks speculative? Also, if the examiner doesn't open the openly say that don't write risk about disclosures or exchange rates? Should we write them? No. If the Amen, if the examiner is saying don't write this risk, then refrain. See, again, the examiner answer is a tutorial guidance. So if the examiner stops you from writing an exchange rate risk or writing a disclosure risk, then you should not write it. Why is the examiner writing? Because the examiner is giving you knowledge, giving you guidance that these were possible risks, but examiner is not saying these were the right risks. So you have to follow the requirement in a very perfect manner and refrain from writing speculative risk. I hope you're clear on that, Eamon. Okay, there is another question from Ankita. She's asking, do we lose marks if we comment on the implication on the audit report if it is not asked for in the question? See, in a reporting question, implication for the audit report or implication for the audit opinion is something very fundamental. But if in any other question, the implication on the audit report is not asked for, and you write it, then that you're doing something wrong. Now, there is no negative marking, right? So you will not lose mark. That is a wrong concept. Because there is no negative marking, you are wasting your time. If a question is not asking for implication for the audit report and you are writing it, you're wasting your time. Now, I hope I understood your question in the right manner, right? Okay, there is another question coming from Hita. She's asking, so best way to summarize accounting standards, many sources, but all are confusing from AAA perspective. Yes, the Kaplan book and the BPP book, the last chapter. The last chapter of the BPP and Kaplan book has a summary of the accounting standards. And to me, this is the best source of revising your accounting knowledge. Okay, another question coming from Isha. Sir, I don't understand what I learn after reading an examiner report. It feels like I read, but I'm not able to conclude something. Can you especially tell us what we need to focus on? See, Isha, when you read an examiner reports, in the examiner report, you will find a lot of do's and don'ts. Sometimes the examiner will say, students should not do this. You should note it down. Sometimes the examiner says students should do this. So it is a constructive criticism, right? It is a constructive criticism. Examiner is also telling you the strengths and the weaknesses. So you can keep a paper with you and make two columns, strengths and weaknesses. Keep writing them. Okay, this is what the examiner appreciated. Okay, this is what the examiner criticized. You can keep a red pen and a green pen with you. Whatever you find as a criticism, underline that with red. Whatever you find as a strength, underline that with green. So when you read the examiner report, you will find a lot of reds and a lot of greens that will help you in retaining, okay, this is something I can do, this is something I cannot do. Okay, another question coming from Elton. Can you please clarify on what goes under other meta paragraph and in which paragraph does auditor comments on other information? See, Elton, the other meta paragraph, since the new report has come in from the September 16 exams, the other meta paragraph is only for a change of auditor. If there is a change of auditor, and last time there was another auditor, this time there is a new auditor, then the auditor mention in the other meta paragraph that the last year audit was done by another auditor who issues a fill in the blank opinion, whatever the opinion was, on such and such date. So that is the other meta paragraph, which is basically used to segregate the liability between the previous auditor and the new auditor. That is it. The other information comes in the other information paragraph. So the ISA 720, the other information, and the auditor responsibility for other information now comes under another other information paragraph, which is a separate paragraph. So I hope you're clear on that, Elton. Okay. Now, another question now, a long one from Saida Somera. Suppose if there is a non-compliance with laws, okay, let's say a court case begin a pre-year and still ongoing with employees in which the client was probable to pay the damages, and it is not disclosed by the entity on the basis it's immaterial. But my point is that the court case is still ongoing in the current year, not finished. Will it be material by nature error? My other question is for audit expectation gap. Mostly auditor add CAM to reduce differences between the auditor role and the public finds. Okay, first of all, Saida Sumera, see, if a court case was going prior to the year end, and you say it is probable. Probable means it is a provision, it is not a disclosure. A provision should be recognized, right? A provision should not be disclosed. So when you say it is probable to pay the damages, then at the year end, a provision should be recognized in the financial statement. And if a provision is not recognized, it will understate the liability and understate the expenses, which is a material misstatement. Now, how would you find material? The amount of the case. Is it material? Is it not? Now, in a reporting question, because the provision is an amount, so we need to follow the rules of materiality by amount, not by nature. So we cannot just say court case and a court case is material by nature. No, if there is an amount, then you have to go with the amount. Only a related party transaction, a going concern problem, or any transaction which relates with the director is material by nature. And for CAM, see, CAM comes on key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters which at the planning stage of the audit or during the course of the audit, the auditor considers as important matters on which you need to focus on. I normally say CAM is area of focus. When you go to the audit, you have certain areas of focus like risky areas, like areas where they can be high risk of management bias, subjective areas, estimates, fair values, going concerns. They're all important areas when you go to the audit. Now, how you address the important areas, how you approach the important areas, that is what you write in a CAM. So CAM basically have two things. Why a matter was considered as CAM, that is what you need to tell shareholder, and how it was addressed during the course of the audit. So any important area in the audit, like fair values, the shareholder would like to know why you considered fair values as an important area and what you did on the fair value. So that's how you would write CAM. So CAM is the areas of focus during the course of the audit, and the shareholder would like to know what you did as an auditor on those areas of focus. So I hope I'm clear on that, Saida Sumera. Okay, another question. Yasir Mehdi, if last year audit wasn't performed, does this come under the other meta paragraph? No, no, not at all, Yasir. Okay, next question from Tanveer. Sir, link with financial and non-financial data is difficult. How can I overcome? See, Tanveer, there is ISA known as ISA 720, which says other information in the document containing financial statement. Now, in the exam paper, for example, if there is a chairman report and the chairman is saying that the profitability has increased by 10%. But when you look at the actual profitability given in the numbers by the examiner, the actual profitability has only increased by 5%. Now, this is a material inconsistency. If the chairman resolved it or don't resolve it, it will come in the other information paragraph that you will tell shareholder that there was a material inconsistency between the chairman report and the financial statement. So if there is a clash, now in the exam paper you will have limited information, right? So you will see, okay, the chairman is telling something which contradicts with the financial statement. So something which contradicts with the financial statement falls under other information, material inconsistency, and you need to report it. Now we know the other information paragraph, uh, if the problem is resolved or if the problem is not resolved, means there is a material inconsistency and there is no material inconsistency, you will add, you will still have another information paragraph. Other information paragraph is a static part of the audit report, and that is the reason the other information paragraph doesn't modify the audit report, because it is a stationary part, it is a static part of the standard audit report. Because basically in the other information paragraph you have the responsibilities of the management and auditor for other information, and whether there is a material inconsistency or there is no material inconsistency, still you will have the other information paragraph in the audit report. Okay, there is another question from Isha. She's asking, is the implication on report is this implication on report is right if everything is correctly disclosed relating to going concern, an unmodified opinion with an MURGC paragraph and a modified report? Yes, exactly. That's perfectly right, Isha. Okay. Then there is another long question from Ankita. She's asking, Sir, I am writing AAA as CBE. I would like to ask if I should copy paste the requirement into the response option or just indicating the question number would suffice. Might be silly question, but I wanted to understand from the. Yes, you can copy the question number even if you don't want to copy the full question. If you copy the full question, you can at least. Then edit the question, break the question into headings that can really help you with the answer. Suppose if the question is comment on the matters and explain the evidence in the working paper file, you can just copy it down with the question number, and then you can just break it. Comment on the matter one and explain the evidence next. So you can just break the question into two parts. So automatically it will become headings for you. So if you copy paste the question, then you can break the question and make them as headings. So will really be good for your presentation. If you just copy the question number, then you need to write the headings yourself and will take time. So I think both are acceptable. Even copy pasting the question is good because you can break it in the headings then. Okay, another question from Yasir Mehdi. Can you briefly tell us about a close call on material uncertainty as mentioned in the technique? See, material uncertainty, Yasir, is a subjective area, is a judgmental area, and the auditor needs to exercise a judgment on what constitute a material uncertainty. Now, in the exam paper, we know that a better indicator of material uncertainty is a liquidity. If the companies are facing a liquidity problem, cash flow problems, the companies are facing issues with their cash balances, that is a better indicator of material uncertainty. The company has gone from profit to loss, and the current ratio has fallen. The falling of the current ratio is a better indicator of a material uncertainty than the profit going into the losses. So it's a subjective area. Now, in I believe in a AAA paper, you have very limited scenario. And in the limited scenario, it's very easy to conclude that it is a material uncertainty because you will have very obvious information. Just like I think the December 13 paper, the question number 5 of the December 13 paper, the current ratio was going down and the quick ratio was going down, and there was an entry of a very successful competitor. So examiner deliberately give you such issues in the exam paper where you don't have to exercise a close call. But yes, from examiner do write about close call because he wants to give you an idea that identifying a material uncertainty is a subjective area and is a judgmental area where the auditor needs to exercise judgment very carefully. Okay, another question. I hope Yasir, you are clear on that. Another question coming from Hita. She's asking how new listed companies are detection risk. Answer: the main ratios to calculate any particular list. Though Ashita, this session is not about audit risk. We just covered that in the prior session. This session is about audit report, but still, a new listed company is a risk of material misstatement because there might be issues with the application of the standards like IFRS 8 and ICE 33, which a new listed company would apply for the first time. So they might do something wrong in the application of the new standards they need to apply as being a new listed company, right? A new listed company will not be a detection risk. A new audit client is a detection risk, right? And the ratios you need to calculate when asked for is 5 ratios. Depends upon the data. I just made that clarification in my previous Facebook session, so you can just watch that on my AAA Facebook page, which I just conducted an hour ago. Okay, another question coming from Eamon again. Sir, when question says evaluate the audit strategy, planning and discussing implication, 10 marks, what to write in the implication? And should I write answer one as one para on issues and one on implications, a total of 5 points? You have 10 marks, right? Everything you write is 1 mark. So when you evaluate the audit strategy, when you think there is something wrong in the audit strategy, when you criticize the audit strategy, you get 1 mark. When you tell what should had been the right strategy, you get another 1 mark for that. And the implication means the implication for the overall audit. Now, if something was wrongly planned, or if something was wrongly something was not put in the audit strategy which should had been put. Now you must have planned a wrong audit, or you must have approached the audit in a wrong direction. So the implication for the audit, because of the wrong planning, because of the poor planning, So when you think there is a flaw in the audit strategy, there is a blunder in the audit strategy, how this must have impacted your uh, audit work, or how this must have impacted your audit overall. So the implication is for the audit because of a poorly designed audit strategy. So everything you write is 1 mark. So in a 10 marks answer, you should have 10 points. Irrespective, the points are for the recommendation on how you improve the audit strategy, or it is about the criticism of the audit strategy, or is it about how it will implicate the overall audit. So everything you write is worth 1 mark, right? Okay. Another question from Elton. Hi, what was the response on this one? I just joined. Elton, can you clarify response on what? So can you just copy paste the question? Thank you. Okay. There is another question coming on from Tanveer again. Sir, writing of an answer after reading the full scenario is appropriate, or writing with reading is okay? No, 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 no. First, read the scenario, identify the points, annotate the points, highlight the points, read through the whole scenario, and then start writing the answer, because there might be something in the scenario later which you didn't read and will not make your answer good. So read the case full before you answer in, right? That's how you go down in with your answer. Okay, so waiting for more questions to come in. At least I've tried to answer each and every question which has come in the last few minutes now. So till the time another question pop in, the purpose of this session is to work on misconceptions you have about audit report. So if you have any questions about audit report, any misconceptions about audit report, you want to seek a clarity, this is a session for you, right? So keep posting your questions, keep asking questions if you have any questions about audit report. The marking scheme for audit report is 1 mark. Anything asked for in an audit report question, any requirement asked for in an audit report question, every point you write will give you 1 mark, provided you have a validate point, you have a properly explained point. So everything in a reporting question is worth 1 mark. So if it is a 10 marks question, so you should have 10 reasonable points to take the 10 marks answer. Okay, in between that, another question from Isha. She's asking, so when I write some evidence, I don't find those evidence in the examiner answer. How can I get to know my, definitely, Isha, don't be worried about it. Your evidence should be from a case study. So if you think your evidence has come from the case study, it is from they are case specific evidences, then you are on the right track. Don't get worried about that my evidence don't reconcile with examiner answers. Mostly they will not. So nothing to worry about. If your evidence is coming from the case, from the situation in the case. For example, you're working on a government grant and you say copy of the grant agreement, then that's the very right evidence. Or the grant was received and you say copy of the bank statement, then that is a wonderful evidence. Even though suppose the grant agreement was not in the examiner answer, leave aside that. Don't be worried about it, right? Okay, there is another question from Hasib. Is there two types of questions on report. One is appraisal and the other is impact trace. Critical appraisal is one question. The other type of question on report is the impact. But you have to read the question on impact very carefully. Sometimes the examiner asks you impact on opinion. Sometimes the examiner asks you impact on the financial statement. Sometimes the examiner asks you impact on report. So don't just have something pre-default in your mind that every time I look at the word impact, it's the impact on the opinion. It might be something else. So read the full statement, right? Impact on what? So yes, right. The questions might ask you impact, and the question might ask you critical appraisal. But in a reporting questions, you also get to write actions. In a reporting question, Hasib, you also get to write comment on the matters. Matters is a very common terminology in a reporting question. Impact is a very common terminology in a reporting question. Actions is a very common terminology in a reporting question. And so is the critical appraisal, right? So I hope you got clarity on that, Hasib. Okay, so it's so good that you are all interacting, and it's so good that you're raising your questions, because the purpose of this session is to address your questions and your misconceptions you have in mind, so that you perform better on the 1st of March, which is just a week away from now, right? So keep putting your questions, and it's so good that you're interacting with the tutor. Now, in between, I get another question. It's very important that when you are attempting a question on reporting, read the requirement carefully, because when you're reading a reporting requirement, there might be a comma, there might be a word and that is where the question breaks. So every time you're reading a reporting question, you will see a comma. That means a break of a question, or you see the word and. So there might be many things you have to do in a reporting question, and a lot of times students believe that there is only one thing to do in a reporting question, that is the impact on the opinion. That is it. No, actions matters. Examiner might ask you impact on the financial statement and then ask you impact on the audit report. So you first need to tell what is the impact on the financial statement under an overstatement, and then you need to tell the impact on the report. So carefully read the reporting question, right? So that is very, very important. So okay, just another question in between my discussion. Questions are more important, right? A question from Chantal. Uncorrected misstatements. They are usually assessed individually. What is the significance of aggregating? I find that part of a question a bit confusing. Is the purpose of aggregation to decide the audit opinion or the impact on the report? See, Chantal, at times the examiner says impact of each of the uncorrected misstatement on the audit opinion or on the audit report. So when the examiner used the word each, that means you're working on individual. You pick up an uncorrected misstatement, you find the materiality, you comment on the treatment, and then you tell, because if it remains uncorrected, what will be the individual impact of the uncorrected misstatement on the audit opinion? Each. So you look at that word each, right? But sometime in the second part of the question, after each, the examiner says, assuming the management does not adjust the misstatements, plural misstatements, comma, justify an audit opinion. Now, the moment the examiner says justify an audit opinion and an impact on report, now an means a single audit opinion. Now, there are four misstatements, for example, and in the first part, the examiner was saying each. So, for each misstatement, suppose for one misstatement you said unqualified opinion, for another misstatement you said qualified opinion, for another misstatement you said adverse opinion, and for the fourth misstatement, again, you said an unqualified opinion, because they were each individual, right? But in the second part, the examiner says, assuming all are not adjusted, justify an audit opinion. So an means single. So you aggregate all four of them, right? Now, the moment you aggregate all four of them, you will get a amount. You will see, is that amount material or material and pervasive? If that amount is material, absolutely, then you will say, okay, one opinion is qualified. Or if that amount is pervasive, then you say one opinion is adverse. So at times in the second part of the question, the examiner asks you justify an opinion. So you have to read the language of the auditor very carefully to pick, is it individual or is it aggregate? So in the first part, it could be individual. In the second part, it could be aggregate. Okay, another question from Isha. Sir, I find difficulty in answering questions which ask for sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence. Isha, see, you have to practice. March 20 was a good question. I think question 2 or 3 of the March 20 paper. See, when you're commenting on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence, you just need to find what is the flaw in the evidence, what mistake the audit team has done when they were gathering evidence. They must have gathered less evidence for some reason. And that is very obvious in the case study. Either they must not have performed the right procedure, or they must not have done the right sampling, or they must not have obtained the evidence from the right document. So they must have done some mistake, they must have done some blunder, and you have to pick that out and you need to comment on that why this is insufficient. So practice, right? You are part of my regular classes, so you can even send me an answer to your question on comment on the sufficiency, and I can check that out for you, right? Another question from Elton. If I copy the question as it is from the partner email with marks, will I be penalized if I answer underneath without changing the wording? No, if you just copy the question in a computer-based exam, you just copy the question with the marks, and under that you write answer, and you start to write your answer. No, you will not be penalized for it. Okay. And dear, is the structure of the audit report of a listed company and non-listed company different? No, it's the same structure. It's the same structure. The only thing is that in a listed company, you have a CAM, CAM is not for a non-listed company, right? So that's the only change. So in a listed company, you have a CAM. In a non-listed company, you don't have a CAM. Normally, in a non-listed company, we have an emphasis of a meta paragraph, but both are different things, right? CAM is something different, emphasis is something different. So that's the only change. Otherwise than that, everything remains the same, right? If I can just show you that. Uh, okay. So that was the answer to your question, Jeetun. I hope you are clarified on that. The next question is from Hasib again. So please elaborate about appropriateness of the audit evidence. See, appropriateness means adequacy of the evidence. Is the evidence adequate? Was the sample size adequate? Was the procedure adequate? The amount of evidence you gathered is adequate. Suppose you there was a receivable, there was a trade receivable now, and you gathered the evidence by just corresponding with management. That is wrong, because if there was a trade receivable, the right procedure would have been that you must have corresponded with the receivable through a confirmation letter. So you see, appropriate evidence means it's in writing, it's original. If you have a choice, if you have a choice to correspond with a third party, then the evidence gathered from the third party is more appropriate than taken from the management. If you have just discussed with management, that alone is insufficient, because you must have done some substantive procedures besides just discussing. Discussion alone is not good, right? Or if you have just taken a representation letter without doing anything, then a lone representation letter is not an appropriate evidence. So you need to know the rules of appropriate evidence even from your AA paper, the F8 paper, right? Okay, Elton, Mr. Kamran, this is not a question. I just want to appreciate your tremendous support. Your efforts are appreciated, sir. Uh, Okay, thank you, Elton, for that admiration. There is a question from Prabha. Sir, is it compulsory to mention ISA reference? No, 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 not at all. Exam technique article, part 3, accounting issue on ACC website, the third article on ACC website, exactly mentioned this. There are no marks for the name and the number of the ISA or IAS or the IFRS. The next question will come in, examiner writes it. No, examiner answers a tutorial guidance, but examiner mentioned in the article, don't write name and number. There are no marks. Okay. Okay. The next question from uh, Vico. So when can a going concern issue be included in CAM? No, going concern issue. See, if a going concern, if there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern, which is adequately disclosed, number one, then you will add a paragraph known as MURGC, number one, right? If there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern, which is not disclosed, then it will result in either a qualified opinion or an adverse opinion, number two. Now, number three situation, which is not examinable yet, when there is a doubt, there is not a material uncertainty. Now, material uncertainty is something very significant, but doubt is less than material uncertainty. But if there is a doubt, but you still believe this is not a material uncertainty, it is a doubt. Now, the doubt should be addressed in the CAM, because if there is a doubt, the doubt will not have a disclosure in the audit report. Only a material uncertainty have a disclosure in the audit report. So if there is a doubt, the auditor can address the doubt in CAM, because auditor know a doubt will not be disclosed in the financial statement. So for the betterment of the shareholder, a doubt can be explained in CAM. But this situation of a doubt has not yet been covered since the new report came in from September 16 exam. So it's almost like 5 years now. Okay, the next question from Mahnur. Sir, in matter to be considered, should we write the accounting treatment first and then identify the mistake of the management, or we can start with the mistake? Yes, see, uh, if there is an obvious mistake in the accounting treatment, you can criticize the mistake by quoting the right. Because if you are saying this is a mistake, you have to quote the right. So it's a blend of both, quoting the right and identifying the mistake, or identifying the mistake and quoting the right. So you have to quote the right standard. If the provision is not recognized, even there is a probable outflow, so you will say, okay, no provision has been recognized, and then you quote the standard that when there is a probable outflow, a reliable estimate can be made. Then you need to recognize a provision, something like that. So you have to quote the right standard briefly, and then telling what is the problem the management has done, right? Okay, the next one from Zavico. So emphasis of a meta paragraph cannot be in a listed company. See, the ISA 701 on CAM says a CAM should be given precedence over EOM. EOM cannot be ruled out from a listed company, but the language is very important. The language is CAM should be given precedence over an emphasis of a meta paragraph in a listed company. If you understand the sentence, I hope you get your answer. So bluntly, we say, yes, use CAM in a listed company. Don't use emphasis in a listed company. Okay. The next question from Hasib. Sir, in your exam tapes on YouTube, you mentioned some accounting standards. Are they sufficient for the sake of preparation? See, at the last moment, they are. You have to cover everything you do in the SPR paper. Every accounting standard in the SPR comes in AAA. But in the last 6 days, those tips are sufficient. Okay, Isha. Sir, I've read the IES and IFRS standards from the Kaplan book. But sir, in exam kit questions, there are some adjustments which are not in the summary of the Kaplan book. Do I need to read standard from somewhere else too? See, exam answers is also a very good source of learning accounting standards. So if you do a past paper and you were writing an accounting treatment, right, and you get stuck, go and see the examiner answer and learn something from the examiner answer. Now, at times in one accounting standards, there are multiple issues. If you addressed one issue, that's fine. Examiner, if examiner is addressing an accounting issue, examiner will write everything about that accounting issue. But in the exam, if you are writing an accounting issue and you address one problem in that accounting issue, you're scoring your 1 mark. But yes, examiner answers, Isha, is a good source of learning. So other than book, you can read the examiner answers, right, for clarity on accounting standards and to learn more on accounting standards, right? Okay, so this session, Facebook Live, is about Ask the Tutor, but the specific topic of Ask the Tutor is about audit report. If you have any misconceptions, any issues about audit report, you're more than welcome to ask it in this session today. I've just done a previous couple of hours ago that was about journal problems you have in the AAA paper, but this session was just developed for misconceptions you have on audit report, right? So if you have any, you still have time to ask it before the session ends within the next 20 minutes. Okay. Namisha is putting a question. That question from Namisha says, can you tell about critical appraisal? Namisha, see, a critical appraisal, every critical appraisal is worth 1 mark. At the beginning of the session, I just made a clarity on that. So if you can just replay this Facebook Live session after it ends, so you'll get the answer to that, because I explain in detail what exactly a critical appraisal means. 1 mark per critical appraisal. So if you get 10 marks question, so 10 critical appraisals. Find a weakness, 1 mark. Tell why it is a weakness, 1 mark. And what should have been the correct 1 mark. So a weakness and why it is a weakness is equal to 1 mark. And then another 1 mark telling what should have been the right 1 mark. So 2 marks, right? And that's how you accumulate your marks up to 10. But please do watch the start of the session, because that will really help you, right, to understand more about. I think you joined late, so at the beginning of the session I discussed about the critical appraisal, because I think that was the first or second question I got in the session. I hope you're clear on that. Okay, so few of the more important things about audit report. In between, I get a question on from a student. So see, when in a section B, one of a question, 2 or 3 has to be on audit report. And you have to be prepared well on audit report. I believe exam technique article part 5, all of you must have read it. All of you must have read it. Can you just give me an answer that have you read the exam technique article part 5? article part 5 not to be a missed article. That is a wonderful article of how you can improve upon in the audit report area. And I hope you've watched my webinars, the recent one, the March 21 webinar, and the previous one on audit report. Okay, there is another question coming in from Mahnur. She's asking, in basis of opinion, the reference to the ethical code should be addressed. Which one are they talking about? Um, the ethical codes is the IESBA code, right? So, in the basis of opinion, the reference to the ethical code should be addressed. Which one are they talking about? The IESBA code, right? That is the proper form, IESBA code. Okay. Another question coming from uh, And so one more thing, right? So you need to the Facebook live session because I've just been very clear on the sufficiency and appropriateness of the evidence as well. Uh, Brandon is saying, sir, I'm so tense. Okay, exactly. These are the 10 days, 6 days to exam. What else can you expect to happen? Okay, no more questions, right? Yes, Manur, it's the IESBA, right? So you got it right perfectly in that case. Good. Okay, so I was saying that in a reporting question, which is to come, which is a must question for 5 marks, 10 marks, 15 marks, reporting cannot be skipped, right? So you need to prepare yourself rigorously well on a reporting question. You need to read the requirements very well, at least do the last 6 papers on reporting. So you exactly know what a reporting question asks you. Try to understand that a reporting knowledge is very important. You can make mess of a reporting question if you overlap rules, you overlap uh, CAM with emphasis or CAM with other matter or other matter with a qualified opinion or a qualified opinion with an adverse opinion. You can make mess of things, right, in a reporting question. Be very clear about what to use, when to use. When a qualified opinion comes, when a CAM comes, when an OMP comes, when an EOMP comes, when an MURGC comes. Be very clear, be very particular about when to use what. So have your rules on a paper, put them down on a paper with clarity. Okay. The next question from Hasib. What will be the approach towards ethics? Are the book learned? Yes. For ethics, I would prefer a book reading, Hasib. So from a BBB book or a Kaplan book, revise the safeguards, the ethical issues, because you need to know the safeguards. The safeguards can be rote learned because they can be applied to different situations. So I think a book reading can help you with ethics, Hasib. Okay. Mahnur, is KIT compulsory for practice? I think 6 past papers are good enough rather than KIT. 6 past papers, rigorous 6 past papers are good over the KIT. Okay. The next from Brendan. So the materials requirement is just too much for the time. Materials requirement, Brandon, can you just clarify what does material requirement mean so I can answer your question in a better manner? Okay. Another question from Brandon. So you have any videos where you tell us how to allocate time for each question? Because I'm so tense. I spent almost 2 hours in question one. Exactly. That's Brandon. That's not your issue only. That's 70% of the students, right? They like question number one so much for some reason or the other, and they spend so much time on the question number one, perhaps for no good thing, because every question has a stipulated time. I've done videos on the time management. It's on my YouTube channel, how much time you should allocate to every question, right? So you have 1.95 minutes per mark. So you have a 50 marks question, multiply 50 with 1.95, so you get the total time. And this is the total time for reading and planning, including the writing. So 50 marks multiplied by 1.95, and you get the time, Brendan. That is the time you should spend on the question number one. It is reading and planning plus the writing. 1/4 of the time should be spent on reading and planning, 3/4 time should be spent on writing. Wherever the time gets up, stop and get to the question number two. Only the question number one will not help you pass the AAA paper. How many marks can you score from question number one? 50 out of 50? No, we are not that good. So wherever the question number one time gets up, jump to question number two, jump to question number three. You have to maximize the opportunities. There are opportunities in question two, there are opportunities in question three. So overspending time on one question is the most illogical thing you can do for the AAA paper. Okay. Namisha, how you can remember the safeguards? Book, write them down on a paper, take a paper, make a summary. Advocacy, mostly we politely decline the advocacy. A self-review thread, mostly we have two different teams for the self-review threads. Try to learn the most common safeguards. But yes, for listed companies, something is permissible and something is prohibited. So I think if you can make a summary quickly on a piece of paper, would help you out. Okay. The other question been discussed so many times. We can go for section B first. Yes, I've just addressed that in my previous Facebook live session of 1 hour ago. You can start with any section first, any question. Examiner says the student who starts with the strongest question first tend to perform better in the AAA Tanveer. Okay. Brandon, sir, another question. I want to know under the risk. Do we have to answer risk in a sequential order, or we can put in any order? No. See, when you're reading the case, in a read of case, you must have found so many risks, right? Now you can start writing the risk in any order. Though it's preferable that you go in top down, but in an exam pressure, you found so many risks in the case. Now, when you start writing, you can start to write in any order. Rather, you start to write those risks first where you are strong and you know a very good way to write them down. Start with them first, and the weaker risk, write them later. Okay. Another question from Hasib. How can we develop procedures? Are they derived through assertions? No, assertions in the F8 paper, right? But in the AA paper, in the AAA paper, the procedures are case oriented. You read a case. If the examiner is asking you to write procedures on segmental revenue, that is a paragraph in a case study. Or the examiner is asking you to write procedures on the joint venture. The joint venture is a paragraph in the case study. Read the paragraph, identify the facts, identify the information from the paragraph, and convert them to procedures. Again, I've given clarity guidance on that in my webinars, in my YouTube, on my YouTube page. So I normally use a mnemonic which students are familiar with. CASP, case specific, C, A action, S source, and P purpose. So if your procedure has a CASP is equal to 1 mark. Okay. Another question from Namisha. What should be the approach to quality control question? See, Namisha, when you're reading the quality control question, there might be so many ethical problems and so many professional problems in a quality control question. So when the examiner says comment on the quality, uh, the problem with the student is they try to conclude every issue with comment on the quality. No, if you are answering a 10 marks question, like which has comment on the quality, comma, discuss the ethical and professional issues, or discuss the ethical, professional, and quality control issues, follow stop, 10 marks. Now, you have to discuss issues, right? Some of the issues might result in a quality going down or the quality getting impaired. And particularly those issues like direction, supervision, review, which is a very focal part of the quality control. So, in a 10 marks question, even if 3 issues or 4 issues are connected with quality control and the rest are not, that's even fine. What the student do is they forcefully connect every issue when the question asks for comment on the quality, and they forcefully connect every issue with a comment on quality. No, in a 10 marks question, even if 3 to 4 issues are commented on quality, then that's fine, and the remaining issues you're just writing issue and why it is an issue, issue and why it is an issue. That's perfectly fine. Okay, another question. Brendan, sir, when the question asks for quality control, ethical and professional issues, do we need to answer separately or can we combine? It can be combined, but you should use headings, not headings like ethical, professional, and quality control issues, uh, headings like the problems. If you're reading a case and you find a problem, manager was absent, put a heading, manager was absent, and explain under. Or when you're reading a case, you found the junior performed work on goodwill. So you put a heading, junior performed work on goodwill, heading and a paragraph. And in the paragraph, you explain why it is an issue. Okay. Uh, Sir, I wish I had your brain next Monday. You are so smart and intelligent. You have questions for everyone. So you're nice and welcoming. Allah will bless you. Thank you so much, Brendan. And I wish you success as well. Not just you, everyone who is attempting the AAA paper on the 1st of March. I wish you all success. See, every one of you are genius. It's about utilizing the brain to the best in the 3 hours. 1 hour, 195 minutes. Utilize this in the best Everyone has been gifted with this. The problem is you don't utilize it. Either you become panic, stress, and you impair the quality of your brain. So you have to focus on the brain. You have to use the brain to the best of the judgments. Don't be generic. Don't be hypothetical. Be very specific. Be very particular in the exam paper, right? Brandon and everyone, you will have success, right? Another question from Isha. So, if there is any knowledge area question which I completely unaware about, how to tackle? See, if you get a question in the exam paper, like 5 marks, 6 marks, and you don't know where is the answer, what is the answer, though everything in the AAA is linked to a case, no rote learning, right? So the answer must be in the case. But suppose you don't know it, leave it for the end. Suppose it's a 5 marks question, so that means the total's like 10 minutes. Uh, Leave it. Suppose you are doing question number 1A, B, C, and you don't know the D part. Write D, leave a space, and go to the question number 2. Go to the question number 3. And suppose the question number 1D was for 5 marks and you had 10 minutes for that. Keep 10 minutes in at the end of the paper. And then in the last 10 minutes, come back to the question number 1D. You left a space. And now try to write anything you can in 10 minutes. Link that with the case. Try to get something out of that and do the best. So instead of getting 0 out of 5, you might get 1 out of 5. You might get 1.5 out of 5, and that 1.5 might be a saving for you. You might be getting 49 and you get 50. So that's how you can do it. So any question you don't know, or any part you don't know, obviously a full question you will every time know, but a part, leave that part. And suppose it's a 5 marks question or a 10 marks question, you know the time, come back later and leave a space. I hope that's clear, Isha. uh, Communication to those charged with governance is at a completion stage. Yes, Hasib. Any tips for a going concern question? Lee, attempt the December 18 question number 2. That is a wonderful question. If you attempt that question, you will learn a lot on the going concern question. Because in a going concern question, one of the most important things asked for is comment on the matters, uh, which cast doubt on the going concern status of the company. So you have to read the case, and you need to find the issues from the question which cast doubt on the going concern of the company. So, and then the examiner asks you to either recommend procedures on going concern or the evidence you would find in a working paper file for going concern. So, at the typical requirements for a going concern question. So, if you practice December 18, you will be good to know what exactly the examiner asked for in a going concern question, Lee. Okay. Another question from Brendan. So I get confused between PFI and due diligence kind of questions in public sector. Uh, can you explain that? See, PFI is a different question. In a PFI question, the examiner mostly asks for procedures. In a PFI, examiner mostly asks for matters to consider when a firm is invited to a tender, and that is it. In a due diligence, which is a separate other assignment, in a due diligence, examiner asks for matters, additional information, even procedures. There are two different topics. PFI is a different question. Due diligence is a different question. And when you read a question, you know, oh, this is a PFI question. Oh, this is a due diligence question. The audit of performance information, the public sector or the private sector, that's a third other assignment, right? Each of them is unique, and I've recommended in my tips the different questions you should be doing on each one of them. So will you have time later to do a short video on IFRS 15 and 16 on the group, please? I will really have issues understanding. Okay, I'll see if I can put a video on IFRS 15 and 16, a shorter one, over my AAA Facebook group for the benefit of the community. Okay, right. So a question on the group audit. Yes, a question on group audit comes very regularly. I think 1 out of 2 attempts you get a question on group audit. The questions start a Falcon group, an Alpha group, ABC group, XYZ group. So group question is a common reality of the AAA paper, Ashita. So if you do the last 6 papers, I think in the last 6 paper, 4 questions are on group. Okay, so I think that is it for my session today. I wish you all a very best of luck. I hope the session was productive. And I've answered every question, no other question remaining, right? So this was a 1 hour session meant for your questions on reporting. And I hope you got answers to your questions. And I hope this session was productive to address your confusions, because this was your session, right? I only spoke for the question you raised. I didn't spoke anything extra, right? So I wish you all success, and I wish you all uh, best of luck for your upcoming exams on the 1st of March. You need to be optimistic. You need to spend time on the 6 recent papers, and see, 3 hours, mind, your judgment. You can do excel. You can be excellent. It's just about cool down, relax. Uh, there might be something in the paper you don't know. Obvious, it's a triple A paper. It's not a double A paper. It's a triple A paper. So there might be 5 marks, 10 marks, which you might not know. And you cannot spoil the 90% paper just because of the 10 marks. Leave the 10 marks. 10 mark means 20 minutes. Keep 20 minutes in the end, attempt the 90% paper, and in the last 20 minutes, whatever you know for the 10 marks, do it, but don't spoil it. Suppose you have 5 minutes remaining, last 5 minutes, and you still have to do a 15 marks question, and 5 minutes. Now in the 5 minutes, if you start making paragraphs, you might hardly make one. So you have 5 minutes and a 15 marks question. You need to write an answer. uh, Go in bullets, 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 bullets. In 5 minutes, you might make 6 bullets, 7 bullets. Now every bullet means you identified something. Uh, each identification gives you 0.5 marks. So probably in the last 5 minutes, uh, rather than you write a paragraph, in the last 5 minutes, write your answer in bullets, because every bullet can at least give you a 0.5 marks. Identify a 0.5 marks, and out of that 15 marks question, you might score 4 marks, you might score 5 marks. Four to 5 marks out of a 15 marks question can be a crucial between your passing and failing. So in the last 5 to 6 minutes, you can be on bullets, right? So okay, just one more question coming from Lee Brandon. Okay, sorry. This is a question from Brandon first, asking a difference between an assurance engagement and a non-audit engagement. See, there are different types of assurance engagements: due diligence, PFI, forensic. Forensic is not an assurance engagement, right? Forensic is a no assurance engagement. So we say other assignments. That's the syllabus title, right? Other assignments, syllabus area F. So there are so many other assignments you have in your paper. Forensic is a no assurance engagement. It is known as an agreed upon procedure. And PFI is a moderate assurance. Due diligence is a moderate assurance. And the audit of the performance information is an flexible topic. It depends upon the management. Does management wants a reasonable assurance from you or a moderate assurance from you? Right. So I hope I'm clear on that, Brandon. Right. So that is it. 10 out of 10 questions answered. And I hope you enjoyed this session. You had some productive intakes to take from this session today. And if any one of you missed it out, again, it will be on the Facebook. You can replay as many times as possible. Again, I wish you all success in your upcoming exams. My prayers, my well wishes are with all of you, my students everywhere in the world, whether it is in Pakistan, in India, in UAE, in the European areas, in Africa. There are lots and lots of students from Africa who join the webinars and sessions. So I wish you all success, right, in your upcoming exams, wherever you are. Stay safe. Study effectively. Last 6 days, crucial last 6 days. Study effectively. Keep yourself healthy, safe. There is a COVID around. You have to keep yourself protected, safe. You need to ensure there are no health issues, no problems with you. You have to keep yourself on toes. A lot of time, a stress causes you problems like fever, like cough. Don't take stress, right? Because that's the worst thing you can get at this point in time. So be healthy, be optimistic, and do everything possible you can in the next 6 days, and be successful, right? Okay, thank you very much all. Thank you very much, Lee from Mauritius, Brandon from Africa. Thank you very much for joining from so many different countries, right? I hope you had a productive Facebook session. I'm Kashif Kamran signing off from this Facebook session. All you need to know about the audit report and all you need to know, all you need to ask about it. Thank you very much for joining. Take care of yourself. Goodbye. Allah Hafiz. Thank you for joining the session.